Hello, this is Mr. Jarrett, and in this video tutorial, we are going to be 3D modeling this cow catcher. So this part is actually part of a later assignment that I will be 3D modeling, and it's called a cow catcher. It's actually the front portion of this train that we will be 3D modeling. So they call it a cow catcher because it's actually the object that's placed on the front of a train, on the pilot car, or of a locomotive, and it's what deflects the obstacles on the track that might derail the train. So in most cases, it could have a cow or a cattle or other obstacles, but they call this a cow catcher. So we're going to be 3D modeling this, and one of the tools that we are going to be using for this is actually the Loft Boss Base tool. So we'll have this kind of shape up top. It almost looks like a baseball home plate. And you'll have that same shape towards the bottom again. And you're going to be lofting the two together to create this odd shape. And then we'll use some other typical tools that we've used before of cutting things out and extrusions to make the rest of this. You'll also notice on this that it says TYP a lot. So you see it there, you see it there, you see it over here. And TYP means typical. So anything that looks like that character is typically going to be that same exact measurement. So for instance, you see TYP and it says it right here. So this basic shape the whole way around is zero point 0.1. It's typically 0.1. Okay, so let's get started with this. This is in inches, so if you have the ability of pulling this to your other screen, I would do so. And then in SolidWorks, go File, New, and let's make sure our units are in IPS. So we're in IPS down here, and we are going to start out by sketching on the top plane. So go to your Sketch tab, Sketch tool, and select your top plane. Now it has the origin being down here at the bottom point of this cow catcher. So as you can see. So I'm going to be drawing looking straight down. I'm going to draw this base first, the base of it first. And the measurements that we're going to have to use for this is kind of from some of these different pictures. So you can see the back of it is 1.8 all the way across. From the back to the front is going to be 1. This side is 0.25, so it's going to be the same thing on the other side. That's why it says typical. And if it's 0.75, 0.75, I apologize, is the top part. So if it's 1 inch here, then this is going to be dead center. So this point, which is your origin, is going to be dead center. So I'm going to be pulling a lot of the measurements from over here. So we are going to use our line tool first. I'm just going to click on my origin and just roughly sketch this out. Kind of goes on an angle, straight back, straight across, down, and then back to my origin. So I'll hit escape. And I know that these two lines are equal to one another. So hold in shift and select your two little vertical lines there and set them to equal. I know that this point up here, so if I just move my mouse over this back line, the midpoint will pop up. If I select that midpoint, hold in shift, and I select my origin, I know that is dead center, so I'm going to make that vertical. So now, if this line grows or shrinks, or if I try to move it in or out, the back line is always set. Okay, so let's put in our basic measurements. So it said that the back line here was 1.8, that these smaller little lines coming forward were 0.25, and from the very back to my origin is actually 1. It's 1 inch. Okay, so it looks like kind of the home base on a baseball field. So now we're going to hit return, and that's the bottom of this. So if you hit Control 7, that will rotate you back to a 3D view. And now we are going to be making a plane that's raised up so that we have a spot to sketch the top portion of this. So looking at that picture, you can see from the very bottom to the very top, it's 0.75 tall. So we're going to do an offset plane up here, so it's going to be floating 0.75 up in the air. Okay, so go to your Features tab, Reference Geometry Plane. And our reference is actually going to be the top plane. So notice I hit that drop down and I selected the top plane. Now, I don't need a second reference here because what I'm going to do is just use this offset distance. So make sure you click on this symbol first. And then in here, you're going to type in 0.75. And I'm going to zoom out and just rotate around to make sure that I'm going up. So you can see that the arrow indicates which way you're going. But 0.75 up. Okay, and I'll hit the green check. So now I have a plane floating up above that I'm going to sketch on. So go to your sketch tab and select sketch. If you hit Control 8, it will rotate you around to a nice view. And the back line here is going to be even with the line that we're going to be drawing. We're going to be drawing basically this exact same shape, but this time we're going to be using the picture in the top left-hand corner. So this very first picture. So the back's going to be even, and the rest of this is going to be slightly smaller. So get your line tool, and let's just draw across the back first. So just draw across the back, come forward. I'm going to move down into here somewhere. So notice I kind of just drew the outline of it, same thing that I did the other time. And once again, I'm going to select the side lines first, the two vertical lines, set them to equal. I'll select this back midpoint. So again, move your mouse over that line at the back until that midpoint pops up. Select your midpoint, hold in Shift. This time we're going to select the point of it and our origin. Okay, so now we have 3 different dots selected. And we'll make all 3 of those vertical. So it centers that up perfectly. Okay, so you can see this moves in or out, and then this goes up or down. All right, the other thing that we can actually do here is we can actually select one of these lines, hold in Shift, and select this line on the left, and we're going to set that to equal as well. So why are we doing that? Well, we did that because it says it's 0.25 right here, so it saves you a dimension of putting it in, and that means I can't move this up or down. And since this line's equal to this, all 4 of these vertical lines are now equal. Okay, so let's dimension that back line. So that back line is going to be 1.2, and from the back to the front of it, it says it is 0.75, and that's actually in the picture beneath that top left picture. So we're looking at the picture on the left in the middle. Okay, so 0.75. So now this is fully defined. The one spot that yours might not be fully defined is if you don't have these 2 coincidences here. So I put my line directly on this other line. If yours is not coincident, then you need to lock this back line onto this. Then I'm going to hit return from sketch. I'll go to my isometric, so Control 7, and let's just turn this plane off so it doesn't bother us anymore. Let's right click on that plane and just hit hide. So you can see I have 2 different sketches here. Okay, I'm going to go to my features tab and hit lofted boss base, and I'll select profile 1 and profile 2. And notice it gives you 2 blue dots. Yours might be a different color, they might be green, and a line. If yours is kind of warped like this, it's all twisted and looks ugly, it's because your blue dots need to be right up above one another. So I just go from the front to the other front. And you can only move these dots 1 spot at a time. So just move it over until you got this nice solid shape. We'll hit the green check. And that was the loft tool. So moving ahead, let's figure out what we need to do next. So we have these little windows that are kind of inset or cut in a little bit. And you also notice down here that there's a hollowed out bottom. So that means we're going to be using the shell tool. Okay. So a little bit of going through this. If you cut this out first and then shell it, you're not going to have that same consistency the whole way around. So you actually have to shell this first, then cut out these little windows. Okay. So I am going to rotate around to the bottom, get my shell tool that is on the features tab, and it actually says that the thickness, the wall thickness here is 0.1, and it shows you that up in the top right hand picture. Okay, wall thickness right here, and this is a broke out view, as you can see, and we've done these previously. So 0.1 thickness right here. So all I have to do is set it to 0.1, which is the default. Select your bottom and hit the green check, and it just shelled it out that quick. So now we're going to be sketching on this window. Get your sketch tool, select that window, and you could go around with the line tool and draw this entire shape, but the best way of doing this is actually just getting the offset entities. And offset entities will basically take the shape or line that you click on, and it will copy it, okay, and it will move it away from or offset it. So it says that it is 0.1 away. So again, it's the default. So I'm going to click on this window here, and I don't want it out. I actually want it on the inside. So you might have to hit reverse and then hit the green check. So it's 0.1 the whole way around. Now I'll go to the Features tab and Extrude Cut, and we're going to be cutting that in 0.05, just like it says in the top right picture. 0.05, green check. Okay, so now you can see that's inset, and this thickness is still correct all the way around. So do that same thing over here on this one. So sketch tool, select that little wall, offset. We'll click on this, hit reverse, and it's still at 0.1. Green check, Features tab, Extrude Cut, and we're going to be cutting that in 0.05. Okay, so we now have those front windows done. So now let's rotate around to the back and let's sketch on the back. And you can see there are three little connecting pieces on the back. So they are basically like little wooden dowels that pop out. So let's draw those three circles. So just get your circle tool, draw one up here, one down here, and another one over here. Okay. Hit escape. I'm going to select all three of the circles and I'm going to set them to equal. Notice I just highlighted all three of them. You can just go around holding shift and select them. This one up at the top, I'm going to select the center point, hold in shift and my origin. And I'm going to make that vertical, so straight up and down, so it's centered. I'm going to select this center point from my one on the left, hold in shift and select the center point for the circle on the far right, and I'm going to make them horizontal, so they are straight across from one another. Okay? Now we can actually go ahead and start to dimension some of this stuff. So it says up in the top right-hand picture, it actually says the size of these. So this picture right here is really tough to see, but it says the size of it is 0.125 from the top to the bottom. Okay, so 0.125 from the top to the bottom. And actually, it says that right here. This one is actually from the very top down, okay, to its center. So 0.125. So let's dimension one of these. 0.125. In the bottom right-hand picture, it says from the bottom up to the center of this is also 0.125. The space between these two bottom circles, so click on one circle and the other. And this is in the left picture, the lower left picture, is 1.25. And it says from one of these circles to the top one, so make sure you're going straight across, not on an angle, is 0.625. So now these bottom two are fully defined. And the top one, we got to go from the top line down, and that is actually 0.125. Okay. It also says on the far left picture that from this one to this is 0.5. So just to kind of double check and see that. Now I'm not going to put this dimension in because it would be driven. Okay. But I'm going to extrude this now, and those come out 0.125. Green check. And they have a chamfer on them. So underneath the fillet, go to chamfer, and it says it is at 0.01 at 45 degrees. So just click on the end of each one of these, hit the green check. Now let's change our material. So right click and hit edit material. And this is wood. This was an old wooden toy. So go all the way to the bottom and it's oak. Hit apply and close. And since it's a small wooden toy, you're probably not going to get a lot of mass. But if you evaluate this, you should get a mass of 0.01 pounds. Okay. Check your surface area and center of mass. And if you got this, you are good to move on. If you didn't, problem solve and continue